right, our iPads are down and flipped. Thank you. And we talked about, a few minutes ago, those of you who are just tuning in at home, I'm going to review for you. No worries. You have a 2-day project. So you won't finish this all in one day. That's okay. Because I really want you to be thinking, you know how Mr. Mink always says there's like high up here thinking and down here thinking? This is high up here thinking. Like higher. Like as high as Mr. Mink could reach because he's taller than me.
I can't reach it though.
Yes.
Above the school?
All right, you are going to be planning a dinner party as a class. We're going to be planning it. But each one of you is going to think of one character from a novel that you've read. Now, it could be something that you read towards the end of last year. Stop, please. I don't want you picking like children's book characters. Does that make sense? Like we're not inviting the doctor. We're not inviting the Cat in the Hat or Horton. We already know that Sam I Am does not like green eggs and ham, so we're not bringing Dr. Seuss characters. We're not bringing like little kid characters. This is going to be a 5th grade and over, party that you are planning. I already read you the sample on front, and those of you at home, you're going to read the sample on your page. Your directions for culinary symbolism. Again, culinary means food. And symbolism means something represents something else. So for example, if I drew this sign, whatever I write in here, what does that mean?
It's best.
Means no, right? If I wrote no crossing, you don't cross that road, right?
Don't cross.
That's a symbol. When you use symbols, you don't need to write everything out and spell everything out, and people just kind of know what it means. You will, of course, explain it just in case there's somebody who's missing what you're thinking. But you're going to do a lot of thought. Fun thought, but thought. You're going to design a culinary representation of a character, their traits or novel themes. Well, taking into consideration color, texture, shape, and taste. So for example, let's think, I'm going to use a Dr. Seuss example. Are you ready? You know the story, How the Grinch Stole Christmas?
You did? Oh, no.
There's the story, there's a character in there, Cindy Lou Who, who's a very sweet little girl. If I were to make a dish that represented Cindy Lou Who, it would probably have a lot of sugar in it, right? It'd be kind of colorful and bright. That would so that when you looked at her, it makes sense. I would not take for Cindy Lou Who and make it like green and bitter because that would look like the Grinch, right? So you knew immediately when I said the colors who from that story I was thinking of. Your colors should kind of go with the overall theme. Now this is cool because you've done this in art, your visual arts class, and in your performing arts class when you did music and you talked about the tone and the mood and all of that. It all ties back in together. So here's an example. What would you serve at their dinner party? You're all going to get this packet. Look how it's like a little food pyramid.
The pyramid scheme.
But, Adam, thank you. Shape. You need to think about shape. You need to think about texture.
I can put my copies.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
I usually the one with grandma and grandpa.
Perfect. Add them all in.
Okay.
Let's make them think.
Uh,
Right?
yeah.
Taste. Should it be fresh or sweet, bitter, sweet, dry, bland, fresh, rich, mellow, robust, hearty, strong, foul? Like if you were making a food that Count Olaf would bring, well maybe it would be like, I don't know, like,
Roast beef.
well roast beef would seem obvious, but what else would you put with it?
Something bitter.
Probably something kind of bitter, like you would think,
An eye.
you would think that through. Nope, we're gonna talk about real food here. Color. So you're good, green, and this is all written down for you. You don't need to memorize this. But here are some samples. Green is kind of like growth, nature, money, or even envy, depending on how you're using it. If a character grows and changes a lot in the story, maybe you would have some like salad or something green there with them. Yellow could be cheerfulness, caution, riches, like gold. Blue could be strength, stability, hopefulness, and calmness. Pink, softness, compassion, and beauty. Purple, royalty, power, luxury, magic, creativity. Red, passion, love, blood, energy, danger, boldness. Those are just some examples. That's not everything you need. Yes?
Did you have two of the same color on?
Well, you need to explain which, you could have two foods of the same color, yeah. Like if I were doing the Grinch, I'd probably have food that was mostly what? Green. But I need to pick different food. I can't just pick green. I need to actually list the food. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. And maybe I would think about like food for the Grinch that was maybe more bitter in tasting. So maybe like a Brussels sprout or an asparagus or something.
Green.
A lime. So here's the deal. Are you ready? The example on the front has a lot of detail in it. I want you to really think this through. Don't be like, they would bring macaroni and cheese because that's what they ate in the story. Think about what the food that they serve would tell about them. Does that make sense? So we're going to imagine that everybody's coming to a giant potluck dinner. All these characters that we are all thinking of in our brains are coming to the same party. We're going to set up a big table. And what are we going to give? What is each person going to bring to share with the others?
Thanksgiving.
Kind of like a Thanksgiving setup, yeah. What are they each going to bring to share with the others? But it needs to tell about them, so that, think about it. I want you to picture in your brain for a minute. Imagine that big table being set up. When we look at the food on that table, how will we know whose dish belongs to your character? When it's all in a big row of food. Now the Grinch is an easy one, which is why I picked him. Because it would be very green. And there'd be a lot of green stuff. But I would also have maybe a few strawberries because his heart grew. So maybe I'd have some strawberries there, showing that at the end. But you need to really give this some thought. Does that make sense? This is not, I'm not taking this for a grade. But this is a good way to start thinking about literature and getting more engaged with your reading. There are other pages in this packet. We'll talk about those later. Because tomorrow we have a whole long language arts time that we'll do the other parts. The food I thought was the hardest part. Because you need to really give it some thought. Now, and in your thought, you could say, I would have the Grinch bring sour Skittles because they're sour and they're green and I don't like them anyway. But that would work, do you know what I mean? So you can use your own background knowledge too, and you should. If there's special food that your family creates or makes, like if you have a lot of food from different areas of the world, I know a lot of families may make some food from, you've got Chinese food, Mexican food, Italian food, food that matters for your family. See if there's a way you could tie that in so that everybody brings something individual. You don't need to watch, it's already fallen, that's as low as it can go. I want you to be creative. So yes, you can talk to other people. Fair enough. And over on the board here, I'm going to have you bring your own expo so we're not sharing. Actually, maybe we'll just do it up here. You'll make a list in a minute. You're going to write your name and your character. The name of your character. This way I can make sure everybody has a plan. And if somebody's picking a character from the same book, you want to know like who they are so you can talk to them. The other thing is, if two people pick the same character, I'm okay with that. But if you get up to the board and you're like, Percy Jackson, Percy Jackson, Percy Jackson, Percy Jackson, Percy Jackson, then I would encourage you to try and be creative and maybe pick another person from that book or from that series. You don't need to change the book, but maybe changing the person would be a good thing. Yes?
Are you also allowed to do the Grinch? Because I think it's a book.
Nope, you can't do the Grinch because I did the Grinch. I have already told you no Dr. Seuss books. Yes.
You're gonna steal him.
If you're gonna choose Harry Potter, I know you read that a while ago. Think creatively about your characters. I don't want you to actually choose Harry Potter. because that's the example that I gave you. But there are other characters in Harry Potter that you could do. Yes.
Can I choose
Shh. Hang on, I couldn't hear Kellen's conversation. Yes.
Can I choose Looney Tunes?
No, because it's not a book. Books that you have read. If you watched it on TV, it's not a book. If you watched it on your iPad, it's not a book. Yes.
What if it's a comic book that you read?
No, I want you to pick like a 5th grade level book. No, Adam, sweetie, we're gonna calm down, please. Giada,
I read a book. I forget what the main character's name is. Can I
then
look
you
it
can't
up?
do that, or you can look it up if you have it. Jackson,
I have what's my favorite book, but it's the main character is a dog.
okay.
A dog?
But is it a dog with human characteristics? Yep, I'm cool with that.
Huh?
Zach,
Are you allowed to do like a character from a book that you want to read, but you can't read it because it's not on your level?
nope, you need to pick a book that you've read. Because otherwise you wouldn't know a lot of the characters. Yes. Dante, if you don't know a book you've read on your own, then pick one of our novels from class. If you're not sure, pick a novel that we did in class. All right, Kelly, cut for the video.